My dad didn't just humiliate me that night. He scheduled it. 30 relatives. One long polished dining table. Crystal glasses clinking. Fake laughter floating through the room like everything was perfect. It was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it became a performance. Halfway through dinner, my dad stood up and tapped his glass with a spoon. The room quieted instantly. "If I can have everyone's attention," he said, smiling like a CEO about to present quarterly results, "I think it's time we address something important." My stomach dropped. He turned toward me. "My child here," he continued, gesturing casually, "is 25 years old. No degree. No stable job. Still trying to figure things out." A few awkward laughs slipped out. I felt 30 pairs of eyes scanning me, measuring me. "He says he's working on something big," my dad added, air quoting with his fingers. "But last I checked, dreams don't pay bills." More laughter. Louder this time. Then he leaned forward slightly. "You know what the real problem is?" he said. "Discipline. A lack of it. Maybe a little public accountability will help." Public accountability. That's what he called humiliation. My mom stared at her plate. My cousins avoided eye contact. My uncle smirked. And just when I thought he was done, he said it. "You're not a leader. You're not special. And if you keep going like this, you'll end up replaceable." Replaceable. The word echoed in my head. I was about to respond when the front door opened, and someone unexpected stepped inside. I wish I could say that night surprised me. It didn't. Public humiliation was just a louder version of a conversation we'd been having my entire life. In my family, love was real, but it was measured. Measured in grades. In trophies. In titles you could put on a LinkedIn profile. Growing up, I wasn't the failure. I was the almost. Almost as focused as my older cousin Marcus. Almost as disciplined as my sister. Almost as impressive as everyone else's child. At every holiday dinner, there was an invisible scoreboard. Marcus just got into law school. Your sister's company gave her a bonus. Did you hear? Daniel bought a condo. And then someone would turn to me. So, what are you up to these days? Not curious. Evaluating. When I was younger, I tried to compete. I studied harder. Stayed up later. Forced myself into boxes that didn't fit. But the truth was, I never wanted the same path. I didn't want safe. I didn't want predictable. I wanted ownership. When I left college during my second year, it wasn't impulsive. It wasn't rebellion. It was strategy. I had been teaching myself logistics systems, supply chains, freight optimization. While my classmates memorized theories, I was studying real-world inefficiencies. But to my father, dropping out meant one thing: weakness. "You quit because it was hard," he told me the day I packed my dorm room. I didn't argue. Because explaining vision to someone who only respects tradition feels like speaking a foreign language. After that, the comparisons intensified. If your sister can do it, why can't you? Why are you always chasing shortcuts? Do you know how embarrassing this looks? Embarrassing. That word came up often. Not because I was reckless. Not because I was lazy. But because I wasn't conventional. I worked for my laptop. I had calls at strange hours. I turned down stable offers. To my father, stability was dignity. Risk was irresponsibility. And the worst part? He genuinely believed he was helping me. He thought pressure would mold me. But pressure doesn't always create diamonds. Sometimes it creates distance. Over time, I stopped defending myself. Stopped explaining. Stopped updating them on anything. If they believed I was behind, fine. If they thought I lacked direction, fine. Because while they were comparing me to everyone else's timeline, I was building my own. Quietly. And that night at dinner, as the laughter circled the table, I realized something. He wasn't trying to motivate me anymore. He was trying to define me. And he had no idea how wrong he was. What nobody at that table knew was that I had been awake at 3:17 a.m. that very morning. Not scrolling. Not figuring life out. Working. After I left college, I didn't jump into success. I fell into uncertainty. The first 6 months were brutal. I tried launching a small e-commerce automation system. It failed. I partnered with someone I met in an online forum. He disappeared with half the funds. I applied for a startup accelerator. Rejected. Each failure felt like proof that my father was right. But quitting would have made him certain. So instead, I studied. Logistics fascinated me, not the trucks, not the warehouses, the inefficiencies. Why shipments were late? Why small businesses paid more than large corporations? Why outdated systems cost millions in delays? At night, while my family slept, I built spreadsheets mapping freight routes. I watched industry breakdowns. Cold emailed small distributors asking questions most people wouldn't bother answering. Most ignored me. Some mocked me. A few responded. And those few were enough. I met Aaron and Lila through a niche supply chain forum. One was a data analyst. The other had warehouse operations experience. We didn't have investors. We didn't have offices. We had Google Docs, late-night Zoom calls, and stubborn belief. We built a prototype platform that optimized regional freight matching, cutting idle truck time by 18%. No one celebrated that milestone. No applause. No family dinner toast. Just 3 exhausted people staring at a shared screen in silence. The first client paid us $1,200. We split it evenly. I remember staring at my portion, not because of the amount, but because it was validation. We weren't dreaming anymore. We were solving something. Over the next year, we reinvested everything. No vacations. No flashy purchases. While relatives assumed I was unemployed, I was negotiating small contracts. While my father thought I was sleeping in, I was adjusting back-end algorithms before sunrise. We scaled slowly. 5 clients became 12. 12 became 30. Then one mid-sized regional distributor signed a 6-month contract. That changed everything. Revenue stabilized. Metrics improved. Word spread. But I didn't tell my family. Not because I wanted revenge. Because I wanted proof. I had grown tired of defending potential. I wanted numbers, contracts, ownership. The real turning point came 3 months before that dinner. A larger logistics holding company approached us for acquisition talks. Not to buy us out completely. To invest. They saw what we built. They saw scalability. After weeks of negotiation, they offered capital in exchange for equity, valuing our company at $18.4 million. I read that email 3 times before forwarding it to our lawyer. Yes, our lawyer. The same corporate attorney who occasionally handled legal paperwork for my father's business. The irony wasn't planned. It was strategic convenience. When the deal closed, I became the majority shareholder. Not Beck, not because I chased status, but because I stayed when it was hard. And the wildest part? The warehouse my father constantly bragged about at family events? It relied heavily on freight partners we were now optimizing. He didn't know it yet, but the directionless dropout he publicly corrected had just become someone with leverage. So when he stood at that dinner table calling me replaceable, I wasn't angry. I was certain. Because silence doesn't mean stagnation. Sometimes. It means construction. By the time dessert was served, the room felt heavier. Not because of the food. Because of anticipation. My father didn't sit back down after his little speech. He stayed standing, glass in hand, enjoying the attention. This isn't about shaming you, he said, though that's exactly what it was. It's about accountability. He began pacing slowly behind his chair like he was addressing a boardroom. At 25, I had already expanded my first warehouse. I was signing contracts, taking risks, building something real. Each sentence was a comparison wrapped in nostalgia. And what do you have? He asked, looking directly at me. 30 relatives. Not one interruption. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. I have plans, I said calmly. He laughed softly. Plans are what people say when they don't have results. A few cousins smirked. My uncle leaned back, clearly entertained. Then my father did something unexpected. He pulled a folded paper from his pocket. I even printed something for tonight, he said. Printed. Prepared. He unfolded it dramatically. It's a job application. Your uncle's warehouse needs extra hands. Starting tomorrow, you'll report at 6 a.m. There were a few approving nods around the table. Maybe real work will teach you discipline, he continued. You spend too much time pretending to be a businessman. Pretending. I noticed my mom shifting uncomfortably in her seat. This family believes in contribution, he said firmly. Not fantasy. The room was quiet now, no more laughter. Just tension. He stepped closer to me. You think you're different, he added, voice lowering slightly. But let me tell you something important. He paused. You are not special. You are not ahead. And if you keep avoiding reality, he let the silence stretch, you will end up replaceable. That word again. Replaceable. It wasn't just an insult. It was a verdict. I looked around the table. My younger cousins watched like this was entertainment. My aunt avoided eye contact. My brother stared at his phone. No one defended me. And that's when I understood something. This wasn't about helping me. It was about control. Public correction. Public positioning. He wanted the family to see him as the responsible patriarch, the man trying to fix his disappointing child. And for a second, I almost let him. Almost accepted the role. But then my phone vibrated in my pocket. One message. Arriving in 2 minutes. I didn't check it again. I didn't need to. Because suddenly, I wasn't sitting there as the embarrassed kid. I was sitting there as someone holding information. Leverage. My father returned to his seat, satisfied. There, he said calmly. Now everyone understands. He thought the moment was over. That the narrative had been sealed. But humiliation only works when the other person has nothing to stand on. And I wasn't empty. I was prepared. A knock echoed through the house. Sharp. Clear. Unmistakable. The room shifted. My father frowned slightly. Were we expecting someone? My aunt asked. No one answered. The knock came again. And this time, I stood up. The second knock was louder. Intentional. Every conversation at the table died instantly. My father looked irritated. Who shows up uninvited during a private family dinner? I didn't answer. I just walked toward the door. 30 sets of eyes followed me. When I opened it, he was standing there, calm, composed, holding a leather portfolio. Good evening, he said professionally. Mr. Callahan. My father's corporate attorney. The same man who had handled contracts for our family business for years. From behind me, I heard my father's chair scrape against the floor. Callahan, he said, confused. What are you doing here? The lawyer stepped inside politely. My apologies for the timing, he said. But the documents required physical signatures tonight. Silence stretched across the room. My father frowned. What documents? Mr. Callahan glanced at me briefly, then back at him. The equity transfer and controlling interest confirmation. You could feel the confusion building. I don't have any transfers pending, my father replied sharply. The lawyer's tone stayed even. Not yours. And then he placed the portfolio on the dining table, right between the plates and wine glasses. This concerns Axion Freight Technologies. A few relatives exchanged looks. No one recognized the name. But my father did. His warehouse had recently signed a major optimization contract with that company. He had bragged about it for weeks. That's the tech logistics firm we partnered with, he said slowly. What about it? Mr. Callahan opened the folder and slid a set of documents forward. As of last quarter, he said clearly, the majority shareholder of Axion Freight Technologies acquired 51% controlling interest. My father's eyes scanned the page, then froze. He started, blinking. That's not possible. The lawyer finished the sentence for him. It is. Your child is the majority shareholder. You could hear someone drop a fork. The room didn't gasp. It went completely still. The company was recently valued at $18.4 million during its acquisition agreement, Mr. Callahan continued. And as of today, all ownership transitions are finalized. My father looked up slowly. At me. Not angry. Not shouting. Just stunned. You, he asked quietly. I didn't smirk. I didn't celebrate. I simply nodded once. And there's one more detail, the lawyer added gently. Your warehouse's largest optimization contract is directly managed through Axion's controlling board. Which meant I wasn't applying for a job at the warehouse. I was overseeing the system that kept it competitive. The same business he used to measure my worth was now partially dependent on mine. The silence wasn't uncomfortable anymore. It was undeniable. Because humiliation feels very different when the truth walks in wearing a suit. No one spoke for a long time. The air had changed. The same table that felt like a courtroom minutes ago now felt fragile, like one wrong word could shatter it. My father was still holding the document, but his grip had loosened. My uncle leaned forward first. Wait, you own the company? Not accusing. Not mocking. Trying to understand. I helped build it, I replied calmly, and I chose to stay quiet until it was real. My cousins weren't smirking anymore. They were staring at me like they were recalculating everything they thought they knew. My mom's eyes were glossy, not from embarrassment, from realization. My father finally set the papers down. "You planned this?" he asked. There was no anger in his voice now, just disbelief. "No," I said. "I built this." That difference mattered. The lawyer gathered his documents respectfully and excused himself. The door closed behind him. And for the first time that night, no one was looking at my father for direction. They were looking at me, not because of money, not because of valuation, but because the narrative had flipped. The directionless dropout. The replaceable one. The one who needed discipline. I hadn't argued. I hadn't defended myself. I had just worked. My father cleared his throat. "I didn't know," he said quietly. And that was the most honest thing he'd said all evening. Because the truth is, he never asked. He assumed. He compared. He concluded. But he never listened. I walked back to my seat slowly. No victory speech. No dramatic exit. Just calm. Because the goal was never to embarrass him. It was to stop being reduced. And in that silence, surrounded by 30 relatives who had witnessed the shift, respect didn't feel loud. It felt earned. I didn't win that night because of money. I didn't win because a lawyer walked in. I won because I refused to let someone else define my timeline. Sometimes the people who doubt you the loudest are the ones who only understand visible success. They mistake silence for failure, patience for weakness, vision for delusion. But not everyone building something looks busy, and not everyone who looks ahead is behind. So if they laugh, let them. Because one day, the truth won't need defending. It will introduce itself.